Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. If you happen to have airbags or air springs on your truck and you're just kind of tired of having to adjust the pressures manually, keep the maintenance up to date manually, then there is something that you can use to make that a little bit easier, which is what we have here today. This is the Firestone Air Command wireless compressor system, and it's going to let you make those changes wirelessly, kind of on the fly. And we're going to be showing you how to install it on our 2021 Chevy Silverado 3500. There's a lot of compressor systems out on the market, and I always like to recommend one that is wireless, like this one here. And that's because with these newer trucks, you just don't have a good place to put all the old school, traditional style analog gauges. Just a lot going on the dash. So having it wireless, you can control it from your mobile device. So whether you want to lower the pressure real quick to make your change, it's as easy as that. You can also increase the pressure too once it finds that spot, finds that pressure. But that's how you're going to be able to make all the adjustments. Now this one is only going to be able to be controlled through your mobile device, which is convenient. There's a lot of other compressor systems though, where you can have a dedicated remote as well as be able to use it on your phone. Honestly, I kind of like those a little bit better. That's just me. I like having that dedicated remote. It's always connected, things like that, and having the phone as a backup. But totally up to you and how you feel comfortable using something like this. A lot of people do ask about the connectivity and if there's any issues with that. And it's hard to say across the board. Everyone's mobile device and stuff's gonna be a little bit different. From what I've ran into, it seems like when it's working good and it's responsive. But other times, I might have to exit out of the app and reopen it to kind of get things going again. So that's just kind of like with anything nowadays, right? It just kind of depends on your phone, yourself, and everything. So everyone's experience might be a little bit different there. Again, that kind of brings me back to that dedicated remote that I'm a fan of. Just you don't really have to deal with that or not even worry about it at all. Being that it's standard duty, it's a smaller compressor and it's slow. It's just what it is. So if you're looking for rapid changes or have big air springs like a lot of these 7500 series air springs or larger diameter, larger volume, this might not be the kit for you. If that's what you got or looking to accomplish, I'd look into upgrading into a more heavy duty kit. So for example, here's the other Firestone kit. Pretty much the same exact setup as this, just beefed up a little bit. So the compressor, you can see the difference in the size there, quite a bit larger. This is going to move a lot more air, be able to work with the large airbags. Even if you want to put a tank, an onboard, tank on your truck, this will be able to power that up and fill that up as well. I talked about the size of the air springs and everything like that with this compressor kit's going to be good for, but a lot of people wonder if, say you got a different brand, right? With this being a Firestone compressor, will it work with an airlift airbag? And the answer is yes. It doesn't care. It's got one job to pump air, and it doesn't matter if it goes into an airlift bag or a Firestone bag. So you're all covered there. And they give you additional fittings as well. So this is going to be a single path compressor, meaning whatever pressure you set it at, that's what both bags are going to receive. And they give you additional fittings and stuff so you can still maintain a manual inflation valve just as backup or for whatever reason. My thought is I'd rather have it and not need it than the other way around. I talked about this making maintenance easier, and what I mean by that is just about every single airbag or air spring out on the market is going to require at least usually 5 psi at minimum all the time, right? Even if you're not towing anything, to protect the integrity of the air spring. And keeping an eye on that all the time can kind of be annoying, especially winter time and stuff when the temps drop. And the way this will work, you can actually have a preset here to where you can set it at whatever pressure. This is just set at 10 here, but you can push that, and when that's on, every time you connect to the compressor, it'll automatically do that for you if you wanted to. So that's how it's going to make that a little bit easier. So pretty cool feature, but ultimately at the end of the day, you know, if you're looking for a more entry-level compressor kit that's wireless, not a bad choice. You know, if you're looking for something a little bit more, personally, I like the Airlift, the easy mount wireless ones with the remote. And then if you want to go real heavy duty, we talked about the heavy duty Firestone one. Airlift makes a real good one too. So it's really just going to depend on what you're trying to accomplish and get done. As far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. Probably the worst part about it on this truck was just dealing with all the undercoating underneath, because you get a little spot on you and it gets everywhere. But you mount up the components. Their wiring harness is pretty nice actually. It's all loomed and kind of pre-made for you. So yeah, you know, you take a little bit of time, get everything set up. If it's something you don't feel like bothering with or have the place to do it, you can always use our dealer locator network, and that'll hopefully get you going in the right direction as far as finding a shop that can help you out. But with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, the very first thing that we're going to do is take our compressor and begin to prep it. So we're going to need to install a couple of air fittings into it. You'll have this one here, and so you'll take this fitting. It's just a push to connect type fitting, and we got this red thread locker on the threads already on it. So what we'll do, start it by hand, and then we want a couple of the threads to get engaged. Take our 1/2-inch wrench here and give it a few turns. Be careful with these, since they're brass, they're easy to crack. And my thought is I'd rather it leak a little bit and come back and snug it up a little bit more, as opposed to over tightening it, cracking it, and then trying to deal with getting a new fitting and everything else. So that ought to about do it there. And then we have this port, which is going to be the air intake. We'll have this little fitting. This one we'll just start by hand. Got a 12 millimeter here. We'll just run this all the way down. We're gonna have this little bundle of tubing here. This will be for the air filter, or it is the air filter hose. And where I plan on mounting this, I already kind of scoped stuff out, which I'll show you. It'll be easier just to have this on now, as opposed to mounting this and trying to get up there later. So these are pretty simple. They just push over the barbed fitting. And then if you want, something I do is just take a zip tie and do one of these deals just to help give it a little extra something. As far as where we can mount this up, you got a lot of different options really. What I like to do is try to get it kind of up out of harm's way. And you want to put it in a spot where your harness will be able to reach it and things like that. Ideally, you want to use the nuts and bolts that they give you to mount this, and not just use self-tapping screws if you can help it. So right here in this area where our bed meets the cab more or less on the frame rail, there's a gusset that's holding up our body mount, which will allow us to get this in a pretty good position and actually mount everything up. Here's where I'm talking about. And all I did, you know, is just hold this up how you want it. And then I used the compressor as a template. I held it in place, marked the holes out, and then drilled them out. I usually drill them out just a little bit bigger. That way, if it's not perfectly lined up, you know, you got a little bit of wiggle room there to work with. You can mount this in any orientation, they say. So if you want to pick a different spot, you know, it's something you can definitely do. But like I said, I got our holes drilled out, so we'll start to get this mounted. I opted to put our air intake facing down, and this hose we can run up to where it'll be dry and everything. And that way, where our airline comes out, it'll just have a cleaner path, you know, to get routed and everything. But they give you the hardware to do this. On each corner, I got these 3 going already, but for this one, you just take a screw, put on a flat washer. You'll put another flat washer on there, and then you have a nylon lock nut. And then when you go to tighten these down, it's a 3/8 and a Phillips head. You don't need to crank on these super tight. You know, you don't want to overdo it. You kind of just want to run them down until it's snug and the little rubber piece is compressed just a little bit. You're gonna have 2 wires coming off the compressor, a red one and a black one. The black one is gonna have this pre-attached ring terminal, and that's gonna be ground. And you wanna ground this to its own source, right? You don't wanna use the attachment points that we used already to mount up the compressor or anything. So what I did on our frame, pre-drilled a small hole, and I'll take the included self-tapping screw and get this secured. Grab the air filter, and this just has a barbed fitting on it, and this is going to plug right into the air intake line, pushing right over that fitting. Again, I'll just put my zip tie on it just for good measure, and we're going to want to put this in an area where it's going to be, you know, high up and staying dry. And what I'll do, I'll find a good spot here somewhere close and show you where I picked out. Our air filter line, I just have it coming down like this, running up, kind of over here, where it's going to get routed up towards the back side of our bedside there. And on our truck, we have the step side on our bed, so this is the back side of that. And I just connect our airline tubing to it using some zip ties. And you want to make sure to put a big, you know, a loop in the air intake hose as well. That'll act as a moisture trap if any moisture does happen to saturate the filter. From here, I went ahead and mounted up our ECU, which is this piece here. Did that the same exact way that we did our compressor, just in the gusset right in front of the compressor. On this one, there was already a hole pre-drilled from the factory, so I utilized it. Use this as a template to drill out our other hole, and then just use the provided machine screws, flat washer, and nylon lock nut to get it secured. We can start to get some of our air lines and fittings and everything ready, and we'll start by taking maybe about 16, 18 inches of airline. You know, I cut that off of our big bundle. Whenever you make cuts with this airline, and this is going to hold true for all of our quick connect fittings, you want to make sure to use a tool like this or a tubing cutter, or I even put this on a block of wood before and use a utility knife, cut straight down, because you want a good clean cut. You don't want it to have burrs or kinks or anything, because it'll probably leak. Make sure it looks good. That's about what we're going for there. And what we'll do on one end of it, we're going to take one of the T-fittings that they give you, and these are all just push to connect quick fittings. Plug that in. You'll feel it kind of lock into place there. And we're going to set this up. We'll have a loop in it and get it plugged in to the top of our compressor. Here's how I got this plugged in, just right into the top of the compressor. Put that loop in that airline like we talked about. And then coming off of this side of the T, I took probably about a foot long piece of airline, plugged it into there, and ran it right over to the ECU, where that has a built-in air fitting. You know, cut that line clean, plugged it directly into it. As far as that last remaining opening on our T there, what you can do is take the remaining bundle of airline, cut the end clean, plug it in to that end, and this is the line that's going to run towards the back of the truck and actually tie our airbags, tie into the airbag system. So that's exactly what I did. Just runs like this, pretty much on top of the frame rail. Here's where the airline comes on top of our frame, and whenever you're doing any routing, whether it be airline tubing, electrical, you know, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. With airline too, you don't want to make a sharp bend or anything to, you know, that way it doesn't kink. I got it running back every now and again, secured it with some zip ties along through here where it just kind of continues along up here in this area. And they do give you a couple little black sleeves that you can put on the airlines, and I put ours right here in this area since the exhaust is relatively close, and that'll just help keep it protected from heat a little bit more. The tubing just continues along the top of our frame, so we get here to the back of our truck, and all the extra that we didn't use I just bundled up in a circle there. And this is where we're going to tie into our existing airlines from our airbags. All right, so this line here, this was originally going to a manual inflation valve, right, where you'd hook up your air to and fill your bags up. This line was for the passenger side, so I removed it from the manual inflation valve, cut it clean, and took another one of the T's, plugged it into that line. This, where it comes in, this is the line that we just routed back here from our compressor. I plugged it into that T. Then what I did, I took, I don't know, 4 to 6 inch piece, plugged into that fitting. On the other end, I took another T fitting, plugged it in there. And this line coming in on from this side is from the driver side airbag. So now all that's tied in together, right? We have our both airlines from each airbag tied in, and the line from the compressor tied in. And then I took another 6 or 8 inch piece, put it in that last remaining T, ran that back, and plugged it into the manual inflation valve that comes in the kit, or you can use your existing one, whatever you want to do. That way we can still utilize that if need be for whatever reason. I like to test everything for leaks now. That way everything's still kind of isolated and we're already dealing with airlines. So we're gonna put about 70 pounds of air in the system. That way we can check for those leaks. The way you can check for leaks, if you have a large one, you can usually hear it dumping air out. It's pretty obvious, but some of the smaller ones are harder to find. So you can take some soapy water and spray all of the connection points. And what you're looking for is for bubbles to continuously and rapidly form, right? If you see that happening, you know you're leaking air. In our case, this fitting looks good. We'll do the rest of them the same way, but if you do happen to have a leak, let the air out of the system, disconnect that line from these quick fittings, and then recut the line again. Make sure everything's clean, plug it back in, fill it up full of air, and check until you verify everything is sealed up. Back to our frame rail here. If we look at the ECU, there's going to be an electrical port there, and the kit will come with a big wiring harness. You can take this end of the harness that matches up with it, plug that right on in there, and then there's another connector, and these are already all pre-attached and stuff, so it's pretty nice. This one is just going to get connected to this red wire coming out of the compressor here. With these being spade terminals, we'll just plug right into each other. The rest of the harness gets routed up into the engine compartment, and so what I did on the top and the side of our frame rail, there's already some existing wiring, and I just followed it using zip ties along the way to keep it all secure and everything. And it's pretty convenient, the harness is already wire loomed and stuff for you, so it looks nice. And it comes up, and then you can push it up into place into the engine compartment through this opening here. In the engine compartment, our wiring comes on up here, and then it's going to get separated into 3 individual wires. We'll have this one here with the fuse holder. That's going to be your power wire. Make sure to pull that fuse out for the time being. We'll hook that up once everything's connected. We'll have a black wire with the pre-attached ring terminal. That's going to be our ground. And then there's a third wire kind of wrapped up in this loom. It's yellow. We're not going to be using that. That's not needed for this particular compressor kit. So we'll start with our power wire. We want to get that hooked up to the positive battery post. So I'm going to remove this nut here with a 13mm socket. This pulled off. I like to keep pressure on the wire, on the factory one, that way we don't lose connection or anything. We'll take the ring terminal, slide that over the stud. The black wire, I got that hooked up the same way we did the positive. I just went to our negative battery post, removed the nut with a 10mm, put the ring terminal over it, and tighten the nut back down. With all the electrical hooked up, we'll take the fuse, put that back into the holder. We'll reinstall a little cover and put our plastic cover back on the top of our battery here. With everything hooked up, you want to download the app on your mobile device. It's pretty straightforward. You know, you can check the instructions if you need a little guidance there, but it'll connect. If it takes a while or you're having a hard time getting to do it, sometimes it does help to turn your Bluetooth on. Seem to help kind of speed things up. But if you have more than 5 pounds of air in the bags, it'll drop it automatically to 5 pounds of air. And I'm going to put, I don't know, we'll just put 30 pounds of air or so in the bags, make sure the compressor turns on and cycles and does what it needs to do here. So far, so good. Here our compressor running. We're building air pressure and should be in pretty good shape. That'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Firestone standard duty air command air compressor system on our 2021 Chevrolet Silverado 3500.